The courtroom buzzed with routine legal proceedings until Colonel Hawthorne's patience finally snapped. "Speak louder, Miss Reed," she commanded, irritation sharp in her voice. The quiet woman in civilian clothes leaned toward the microphone and whispered 5 words that changed everything. The effect was instantaneous. The judge's gavel slipped from her fingers. Officers shot upright in their seats. Faces went pale throughout the room. No one had expected a ghost to testify. No one had expected the sole survivor of a mission that officially never happened. No one had expected the truth. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story moves you, please consider subscribing. We share powerful stories of courage and honor every day. The military courthouse hummed with the familiar rhythm of legal proceedings. Morning sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting geometric shadows across polished floors. The room carried the scent of old wood and fresh tension. It was mid-morning on what seemed like another standard day of testimony in the case of United States v. Major Daniel Morrison. Sophia Reed sat 3 rows back, deliberately unremarkable in her charcoal blazer and simple white blouse. Her auburn hair was pulled into a neat bun, no jewelry, minimal makeup on her fair complexion. Mid-30s, with a face that suggested experience beyond her years. Her steady blue eyes observed everything, while demanding nothing in return. To casual observers, she might have been anyone, perhaps a paralegal, maybe a concerned citizen. She occasionally made notes in a small black notebook, her movements precise and controlled. Unlike the military personnel who filled most seats with their crisp uniforms and formal bearing, she wore no visible indicators of rank or service. Just a civilian, it appeared, with some interest in military justice proceedings. The case before the court involved Major Daniel Morrison, accused of compromising classified intelligence and negligence that allegedly resulted in the deaths of 4 operatives during Operation Thunder Ridge 2 years prior. The operation had briefly surfaced in classified briefings, a failed reconnaissance mission, a team lost, questions raised, then quickly buried under layers of national security protocols. Lieutenant Marcus Stone, a sharp prosecutor with ambition written in every gesture, delivered his arguments with calculated precision. He gestured toward tactical displays and mission timelines. Major Morrison had clear protocols regarding team extraction, Stone declared, his voice carrying authority throughout the courtroom. His decision to abandon the retrieval directly caused the team to be stranded in hostile territory without support. Major Morrison sat motionless at the defense table, his decorated uniform somehow diminished under the weight of accusation. 15 years of distinguished service reduced to this moment of judgment. His face remained carefully neutral, though tension showed in the set of his shoulders. Sophia watched it all, her expression revealing nothing. Only the occasional tightening of her grip on her pen suggested any emotional investment in the proceedings. When Colonel Janet Hawthorne called the next witness, heads turned with mild surprise as Sophia rose from her seat. "The prosecution calls Sophia Reed," Lieutenant Stone announced. She moved toward the stand with measured steps that somehow caught the attention of several veteran officers in attendance. Something about her bearing, shoulders square, spine straight, chin level, suggested familiarity with military precision. Colonel Hawthorne, known for her efficient courtroom management and no-nonsense approach, watched Sophia with sharp eyes as she took the oath. The judge wore her authority like armor, her robes immaculate, her manner direct and uncompromising. "Please state your name and occupation for the record," Colonel Hawthorne instructed. "Sophia Reed, intelligence analyst, civilian contractor,
Her voice was clear but soft, requiring attention to hear properly. Lieutenant Stone began his questioning, and Sophia's responses were factual and measured, but delivered in such a quiet tone that Colonel Hawthorne quickly grew visibly impatient. The court reporter had to ask for repetition several times. "Miss Reed," Colonel Hawthorne finally interrupted, "the court reporter needs to capture your testimony accurately. Please speak up." "Yes, Your Honor," Sophia replied, barely increasing her volume.
Lieutenant Stone continued his examination. "Ms. Reed, can you explain your involvement with the intelligence assessment for Operation Thunder Ridge?" "I analyzed satellite imagery and human intelligence reports concerning the target area. I provided assessment of likely opposition strength and terrain challenges." "And what were your findings?" "I determined that extraction would face significant obstacles due to mountainous terrain and limited egress routes. I also noted inconsistencies between intelligence sources regarding local militia capabilities." "Did you document these concerns?" "Yes, I submitted a comprehensive assessment recommending additional surveillance before mission execution." "Was that recommendation implemented?" "It was not." The defense attorney, Major William Cross, approached for cross-examination with obvious confidence. Tall and silver-haired, with the bearing of someone accustomed to controlling courtroom narratives, he moved with practiced authority. "Ms. Reed, what was your specific role in Operation Thunder Ridge?" "I provided intelligence analysis related to the mission's target location." "And your security clearance level?" "I maintained sufficient clearance for my assigned responsibilities." Major Cross smiled thinly. "Ms. Reed, how could you possibly understand the complexities of a classified field operation when you were merely reviewing data from a remote location?" Something flickered across Colonel Hawthorne's expression, a brief shadow of recognition, quickly suppressed. She studied Sophia more carefully now. "Objection. Argumentative," Lieutenant Stone interjected. "Sustained," Colonel Hawthorne replied, her eyes never leaving Sophia. Major Cross adjusted his approach. "Let me rephrase. What direct field experience do you have with tactical operations in hostile environments?" Sophia paused, her gaze briefly meeting that of a gray-haired veteran in the gallery. "My background includes field assessment experience," she said carefully. "Could you be more specific?" "That information isn't relevant to my testimony regarding Operation Thunder Ridge." Major Cross looked to the judge. "Your Honor, if the witness lacks relevant field experience, her assessment of tactical decisions made during operations should be weighted accordingly." "I'll allow the questioning," Colonel Hawthorne ruled. "Ms. Reed, please answer more directly." Sophia's expression remained neutral. "My field experience is largely classified." "How convenient," Major Cross remarked dryly. "So we're expected to credit your opinions on tactical decisions without understanding your qualifications to make such assessments?" "I'm testifying to the intelligence analysis I provided prior to mission execution, not to tactical decisions made during operations." As questioning continued, Sophia demonstrated increasingly detailed knowledge of operational protocols that made several military officers exchange meaningful glances. She referenced specific communication procedures, extraction methodologies, and tactical considerations that seemed beyond standard analyst training. When shown photographs of the mission aftermath, damaged buildings in a remote valley, her eyes lingered momentarily longer than necessary, her composure wavering almost imperceptibly before recovering. "Do you recognize this location, Miss Reed?" Major Cross asked. "Yes, it's the extraction point where the team was scheduled for recovery." "And your analysis of this location proved inadequate, did it not? The intelligence you reviewed failed to identify hostiles in such significant numbers." Sophia's voice remained steady.
The intelligence I reviewed indicated potential hostiles. My recommendation for additional reconnaissance was intended to address those uncertainties. In the gallery, the older veteran with ribbons across his chest watched Sophia with growing intensity, his expression shifting from curiosity to something approaching recognition. Lieutenant Stone returned for redirect examination, questioning Sophia about specific communication procedures used during the mission. "Can you explain standard communication protocols for an operation of this nature?" Stone asked. "The team would establish primary and secondary communication channels with extraction units," she explained, her voice still frustratingly quiet. "Standard protocol requires message acknowledgement and coordinate confirmation at predetermined intervals. And if communications were compromised? Quick reaction force deployment would utilize frequency-hopping transmissions on alternate channels after primary communications failed," she explained with technical precision that raised eyebrows among military personnel present. Colonel Hawthorne leaned forward, patience visibly wearing thin. "Ms. Reed, I've asked repeatedly that you speak audibly. The court cannot properly evaluate testimony it cannot hear clearly." "I apologize, Your Honor," Sophia replied, volume barely increasing. The veteran in the gallery now sat forward, recognition dawning in his expression, shock replacing curiosity.
Major Cross seized on the colonel's frustration. Perhaps Ms. Reed's reluctance to speak clearly reflects limited confidence in her own conclusions. "Objection!" Lieutenant Stone stood immediately. "Sustained!" Colonel Hawthorne replied sharply. "Major Cross, confine remarks to questions for the witness." Major Cross nodded acknowledgement. "Ms. Reed, in your expert opinion as an intelligence analyst, was there anything about intelligence provided to Major Morrison that would have justified his decision to abort extraction?" Sophia looked directly at Major Morrison for the first time. The intelligence provided to Major Morrison was incomplete. "That wasn't my question. Based on what he received, was his decision justified?" "Based solely on what he received, yes, but what he received wasn't the complete intelligence picture." Major Cross's expression hardened. "Are you suggesting information was deliberately withheld from the commanding officer?" "I'm stating that the intelligence briefing provided to Major Morrison differed significantly from the assessment I submitted." The courtroom stirred with murmurs. Colonel Hawthorne tapped her gavel once, restoring order.
"Miss Reed," Colonel Hawthorne said, voice tight with growing impatience, "you'll need to explain that assertion clearly and audibly. What specifically was omitted from Major Morrison's briefing?" Sophia paused, scanning the room briefly before returning to the judge. When she spoke, her voice remained soft, forcing everyone to lean forward. "My assessment included intelligence indicating the team had discovered evidence of unauthorized weapons transfers to local insurgent groups. That information was removed from the briefing provided to Major Morrison." Major Morrison's head snapped up, carefully maintained composure cracking for the first time. Colonel Hawthorne's expression darkened as she studied Sophia with newfound intensity. "Miss Reed," Colonel Hawthorne said firmly, frustration evident, "this is the final time I will ask you to speak louder. The court reporter must record your testimony accurately." Sophia looked directly at Colonel Hawthorne. A look of quiet recognition passed between them, though the judge quickly masked it with professional detachment. The veteran in the gallery gripped the bench, knuckles white. Colonel Hawthorne finally interrupted with visible impatience, leaning forward. "Miss Reed, we don't have all day.
Speak louder or we'll dismiss your testimony entirely." The courtroom fell completely silent. For the first time since entering, Sophia looked directly at Colonel Hawthorne. That look of quiet recognition passed between them again, though the judge quickly masked it. The silver-haired veteran leaned forward, hands gripping the bench. Sophia leaned closer to the microphone and whispered, "Ghost Echo 72 Alpha." The effect was immediate and electric. Colonel Hawthorne's gavel slipped from her fingers, clattering loudly on the desk. Several military officers physically straightened as if receiving a command. Major Morrison's face drained of color. The veteran in the gallery stood involuntarily, then slowly sat back down. Complete silence fell as recognition dawned across various faces. Some looked confused, others shocked, and those who understood the significance appeared stricken.
Sophia continued in the same soft voice, but now everyone strained to hear. "I was the extraction specialist on Operation Thunder Ridge. I was also the only survivor of Operation Ghost Echo, which Colonel Hawthorne personally authorized 3 years prior." She methodically produced a weathered, blood-stained tactical notebook from her bag, holding it up for the court. "This contains the actual operational directives for Thunder Ridge, not the falsified ones presented here. Major Morrison isn't responsible for those deaths. He followed direct orders from command to abandon extraction after the team discovered evidence of weapons sales to hostile forces." Colonel Hawthorne attempted to call for order, but found her voice failing. "Ms. Reed, Commander, this is highly irregular. My team and I were declared KIA. I was the only survivor. I've spent 2 years gathering evidence and waiting for this moment, not for revenge, but for truth." A younger officer near the back stood. "This is impossible. Commander Reed died in Operation Ghost Echo. I attended her memorial service." The silver-haired veteran turned to address him. "Sit down, Captain. Look at her eyes. You never forget those eyes."
Sophia opened the notebook, revealing photographs, coordinates, and handwritten field notes. The team was abandoned because they discovered General Harrison Whitfield was selling advanced tactical equipment to insurgent forces through private contractors, the same contractors who provided faulty intelligence that sent us into an ambush. The courtroom erupted. Colonel Hawthorne pounded her gavel repeatedly, finally restoring some order. Her face had lost color, her hand trembling visibly. "This court will recess for 30 minutes, she declared, voice unsteady. But before anyone could move, Sophia spoke again. "With respect, Colonel, I've waited 2 years to speak. I'll finish now." Colonel Hawthorne slowly sat back down, authority visibly shaken. She nodded once, reluctant permission.
Operation Ghost Echo was classified above top secret, Sophia continued. Our mission was identifying sources of advanced weapons appearing in conflict zones, matching specifications of prototype American systems. We traced weapons to a storage facility outside Kandahar. What we found was a sophisticated distribution network with documents linking directly to General Whitfield. She turned a page and removed a microfilm canister. This contains transaction records, weapon serial numbers, and financial transfers. We transmitted this intelligence before we were compromised. That transmission was intercepted and buried. Our extraction was canceled. We were left to die. Major Morrison stood, voice hollow. I received direct orders from General Whitfield to abort. He said the team had already been confirmed KIA. We weren't, Sophia said simply. We were very much alive and calling for extraction. I heard your voice on communications, Major Morrison. You sounded confused, but you followed orders. Lieutenant Stone approached cautiously. Commander Reed, if what you're saying is accurate, how did you survive, and why wait 2 years to come forward?
Sophia's composure never wavered. I survived because I was separated from my team during the final firefight. I was wounded, unconscious, presumed dead. Local villagers found me and kept me hidden while I recovered. By then, the official story was established. My team was dead, the mission never existed, and General Whitfield had been promoted. She looked around the courtroom, meeting several senior officers' eyes. I needed time to gather evidence that couldn't be buried again. I needed to understand who knew about the betrayal and who was simply following orders. Most importantly, I needed to ensure my team's families would finally learn the truth. The silver-haired veteran approached the front. "Your Honor, request permission to address the court." Colonel Hawthorne nodded, grateful for the interruption. "I am Colonel Victor Sterling, retired. I was the training officer for the Ghost Echo team. Commander Reed was one of the finest operators I ever trained. If she says her team was betrayed, I believe her without question."
Major Cross interjected. "This is dramatic, but it has no bearing on the case before us. Major Morrison is charged with negligence regarding Operation Thunder Ridge, not some classified mission from years ago." "They're connected," Sophia replied. "Operation Thunder Ridge was deliberately compromised because the team was getting too close to the same weapons network. History repeating, different team, same betrayal, same source." She pulled another document from her notebook. This is a communication log showing Major Morrison requested confirmation of the abort order 3 times. He was told explicitly that disobeying would result in court-martial. He wasn't negligent, he was manipulated. Colonel Hawthorne studied the document, judicial demeanor cracking further. These logs weren't included in evidence presented to this court. "Because they were deliberately removed," Sophia said, "just like the intelligence I submitted was removed from Major Morrison's briefing."
The courtroom had grown absolutely still, everyone aware they were witnessing something extraordinary. Even the court reporter had stopped typing, staring at Sophia with undisguised astonishment. Lieutenant Stone approached the bench. "Your Honor, in light of this new evidence, the prosecution requests recess to review these materials and potentially reassess charges against Major Morrison." Colonel Hawthorne nodded absently, attention still fixed on Sophia. "Granted. This court will recess until tomorrow morning at 0900. Commander Reed will remain under court protection until then." As people began rising, Sophia spoke again. "There's something else you should know, Colonel." She removed a final document from her notebook. "This is the original authorization for Operation Ghost Echo with your signature. And this," she produced another paper, "is the abort order that condemned my team. The signatures don't match." Colonel Hawthorne took both documents with trembling hands. "Someone forged my signature on the abort order," she whispered, shock evident. "Yes," Sophia confirmed, "you've been carrying guilt for a decision you never made."
Colonel Sterling moved closer. "I always wondered why you would abandon that team, Janet. It didn't align with anything I knew about your character." Colonel Hawthorne looked up, tears forming. "I've spent 2 years believing I made a call that got 4 good people killed. I approved the mission, but I never authorized abandoning them." The doors swung open, and military police entered, led by a stern-faced brigadier general. "What is the meaning of this interruption?" Colonel Hawthorne demanded, quickly regaining composure.
Colonel Hawthorne, I'm Brigadier General Foster from the Inspector General's office. We received an anonymous package yesterday containing evidence of serious breaches involving General Whitfield. I understand there may be connected testimony occurring here today. Sophia smiled faintly. Right on time. General Foster approached her. You would be Commander Reed. We have many questions. And I have answers, General. 2 years' worth.
The general turned to Colonel Hawthorne. With the court's permission, I'd like to take custody of Commander Reed's evidence and arrange her protection pending full investigation. Colonel Hawthorne nodded. Granted, but I want full briefings. It appears I've been an unwitting party to this situation. The courtroom began clearing, but Major Morrison remained seated, looking shell-shocked. Sophia approached quietly. I don't understand, he said, looking up. Why would you help me? I'm the one who left your team behind in Thunder Ridge. Because you were another victim of the same corruption. You followed what you believed were legitimate orders. The guilt belongs with those who manipulated you. How can you be certain? Sophia allowed the smallest smile. Because I've spent 2 years studying every detail. I know who gave the orders and why. I know who altered intelligence reports and who profited from weapon sales. Most importantly, I know you requested confirmation 3 times because you suspected something was wrong. Major Morrison's eyes widened. How could you know that? Those communications were encrypted. I had help.
As she prepared to leave with General Foster, Colonel Sterling approached. Commander, he said formally, then dropped his voice. Sophia, we buried you. I spoke at your memorial. I know, she replied quietly. I read the transcript. Thank you for your words. What happens now? Sophia looked around the emptying courtroom. Colonel Hawthorne, still visibly shaken. Major Morrison, contemplating potential exoneration. Lieutenant Stone, reassessing everything he thought he knew. Now, she said, the truth finally has a chance.
Colonel Hawthorne slowly removed her judicial robes, stepping down from the bench to stand on Sophia's level. The court recognizes Commander Sophia Reed, presumed killed in action, recipient of the Silver Star, she announced formally, her voice carrying weight of regret and respect. Colonel Sterling approached and rendered a perfect salute. Others throughout the courtroom followed suit, a ripple of silent acknowledgement spreading through the room. Military personnel who moments ago had regarded her with skepticism now stood at attention, honoring a fallen comrade returned from the dead. As she descended the courthouse steps alone, her shadow stretched long behind her, the shadow of a soldier standing at attention rather than an anonymous civilian. She paused to look back at the courthouse where justice had finally begun to take shape. The families would learn the truth. The guilty would face consequences. The innocent would be cleared. But the most important part was complete. The truth was out, and the fallen had been reclaimed from obscurity. From the shadows, she had emerged to speak for those who could no longer speak for themselves. And in that whispered call sign, she had shattered years of lies with 5 simple words that changed everything. The power of truth doesn't need to shout. Sometimes it just needs to whisper at exactly the right moment. Subscribe to Tales of Valor for more stories of courage, honor, and the quiet heroes among us. Because some truths are worth waiting for, and some voices carry the weight of justice itself.